Welcome everyone to the Positive Outcomes Parenting Tips webinar. We are talking today about parenting during the pandemic, and we're just going to take a second to introduce ourselves.
Um, Hello, everybody. My name is Desiree Dias, and I am a counseling psychologist from India, Mumbai. I work at a school as a school counselor, and I also have a small private practice as well. And I'm very happy to be here with all of you ladies. I hope we're going to have a fruitful conversation, help out parents listening in.
Hi. Hi, everyone. I'm Darshini and I'm a marriage and family therapist. Currently, I'm a mom to a 21-month-old daughter, and I love being with her. I'm so happy that, this topic is very close to my heart. Being a first-time parent, I have so many questions, so I'm glad we are doing this. Thank you.
Lovely. Hi, everyone. I'm Laxmi Parmeswar. And first of all, Darshini, I want to thank you for encouraging us to do this webinar because of the parenting questions that are coming up. And it's such a joy to be hosting and talking with all of you. You all have a relationship with positive outcomes, and I love you for it. And you've been an incredible part of the journey for positive outcomes and for me personally. So thank you for that. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm a licensed family therapist, practicing in the United States for about 30 plus years. I'm not going to tell you the exact number because that's going to be a giveaway, but it's been a long time. And but more importantly, the part that I enjoy the most is being a parent of two adult boys. And as we have this conversation today, I hope that we can both wear two hats. All of us wear two hats, that of being a therapist. All of us are in family therapy and we've been practicing all for a while. So we want to be therapists, but more importantly, we want to talk from the perspective of being a parent because that's what makes it real and meaningful. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you. And my name is Rashmi, and I am a mom of a 5 and 7-year-old. And before I was a mom, I was a therapist. And so I'm really interested in having this conversation because things have been hard during the pandemic and challenging for all of us. And it's going to be enlightening to go through all of these questions we have today.
Okay, great.
Well, one of the first questions that I think a lot of parents ask right now, especially since we're several months into the pandemic, is what can parents do to keep going or stay the course when they're starting to feel hopeless or uncertain about the future?
Hmm. Hmm. So that actually is one of the most important questions because when you think about parenting, regardless of the age of the child, I think parenting is about the parents more than it is about the child, no matter what the situation is and no matter what the age is. So we are now about 9 months into the pandemic. Is it 9 months? Around nine to
Yes.
10 months.
9 to 10 months.
And that is such a long time. And I don't know about the rest of you, but initially when all this happened, your mind and your body gets into a stage of, oh, this is so unusual. This is a trauma. We're therapists, we're parents, we need to have a sense of normalcy. So we just, struggled so much to do all the right things, right? And there was a newness to it. There were some advantages to it too. We were all at home, the kids were home, we were working from home. But now that has worn off. That honeymoon is over. It's 9 months. And I don't know about all of you, but I'm getting exhausted just thinking about how long is this going to go on. We just had Diwali for those of us who celebrate Diwali, we had Thanksgiving here in the US. Christmas is coming up. We all celebrate Christmas. New Year is around the corner. And none of us know how long this is going to go on. So to answer the question specifically, Rashmi, what I would say is all parents need to ask themselves, how am I doing with this trauma? How are we as adults dealing with it? Because what we are doing is what our children are watching, not what we're saying. So we have a responsibility to model healthy, appropriate behaviors that we want our children to have. So I was just reading an article the other day where this person was saying that during the day, when she wants to have a meltdown, she herself, an adult, wanted to have a meltdown. What she did is she had a 3 or 4 year old child in the room with her while she was working, and she was frustrated with what she was doing. So she basically, went to her child. She said, "Come, let's sit together." She sat with the child and said, "I'm going to just take a deep breath because mommy is frustrated. Mommy is having a difficult day at work." And the kid said, What does that mean?" And they actually did a deep breathing together. So something like that, what does it do? It first acknowledges that this is unusual, this is traumatic, and mommies can have meltdowns too, just like kids can have temper tantrums. So she took that and she made it into something behavioral. What can we do to take, to close your eyes, take a deep breath? So when people say, when parenting experts say, do mindfulness, do meditation, do deep breathing, sometimes you're listening to it and you're saying, there's no way I can do deep breathing. My child's having a temper tantrum. My teenager is having a boyfriend online that I don't know about or that I shouldn't know about. I don't know how to supervise them. My job's almost, I'm going to lose my job. It doesn't make it, doable. But when you actually physically acknowledge to yourself, this is a difficult time. I'm feeling out of control. I feel like I need to throw my hands up in the air and have a meltdown. Let's then practice something, try to practice something and see how it feels. And she said that after having done that, she does that a lot with, all her kids, so that they all recognize it's out in the open. It's not a secret trauma. It's recognizing that. So I don't know if I entirely answered the question, but I think we need to be mindful of what we're doing and what we're modeling in front of the kids.
Mm-hmm.
That's important.
Yeah.
And I think that brings up a lot of questions that parents have about juggling working from home and having maybe one child or more in online school, and then possibly having a child that's not in school yet and under 5, and how they can juggle that, maintain their sanity, make sure everybody's being safe online, and make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing at the time they're supposed to do it. Meanwhile, a child under 5 doesn't really have a schedule yet. So I think a lot of parents are kind of like, how do I do this? Do you have any suggestions for that type of situation?
Desiree, do you want to take that one or you want me to do?
Sure, Rashmi. Being a working mom myself, although I don't have a child under 5, here in India, Mumbai, our 5-year-olds also are going to school. They go to preschool, so they very much have a schedule. They will have assessments and evaluations here. So our kids under 5 are not spared here in Mumbai. They very much have classes, and having to do live sessions myself with students, and having my son have his online classes with my husband working from home and a grandparent. here living in with me, I have my hands full. So I will tell you from experience, some days can be crazy, especially when technology starts to give. So
Mm,
the other morning,
yes.
my son dropped my laptop just as I was getting ready for class, and I was freaking out. I was
Mm,
I was like, so so I was lucky to have my husband come rushing in and just help me with whatever I needed. It's not like it could have been posted or postponed or recorded later. It had to happen because these are all live classes. So
right.
it's nice when you have your partner coming in and supporting you, and what do you need and what can I do, and you know um, my son was upset because mama was upset, and
Mhm.
thankfully we don't have too many mornings like that.
Right.
um, you know Technology supports us, and I think planning helps, Rashmi. um, I tend to plan in advance because that's the only way I'd be able to deliver my lesson and do it in a way that's going to help the kids ensure uniform, because he's got to sit in a school uniform for
Mm-hmm.
classes. So ensure that uniform, books. So I wake up much earlier than everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's good old planning, and knowing what are you able to accomplish in those few hours just prior to when work begins.
Mm-hmm.
So my husband work begins at 4 a.m. So he's already working before we wake up. So there's a lot of planning and a lot of scheduling. Does it always work? No. But then we tell ourselves to just, it's okay. We can't be so regimental and so hard on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I think people are working harder than ever working from home, because you're working all day long. And I speak for myself when I say I'm working all day long. You can't catch a break because, there's no help. There's no help at all. So I think support from family. But I'm blessed to have a good family. But when I think about families that are having trouble, and there's discord in the family, so I can imagine what must be going on with everyone struggling for devices and bandwidth, and it's probably crazy. But as Lakshmi said, behaviors need to be caught. They can't be taught to our children. And our children are watching us. When we are in a stressful situation, how we respond. So, Mama, that day was in tears almost because I didn't know what to do. It was a live session. So, we managed to pacify my son and everything, and, things went on smoothly. So I guess having support, the support of family means a lot in these times. But then my heart goes out to those families that are all alone without any support. Darshini and I were just speaking before this webinar began how there is no family support for her at all. I hope that's okay to share,
Yeah, yeah.
Darshini.
I think,
Yeah.
and that brings me to,
Mm-hmm.
I feel that you are blessed to have such a wonderful family support, and your husband came down to rescue. But there's the question which I hear from a lot of my friends and other people that, working from home has increased the conflict between the two adults. And especially when it comes to who'll take care of the kid, because both of us are working. So now what? And that
Mm-hmm.
conflict has been witnessed by the kids, and this has been affecting the marriage. So I would like to ask, like, what can we do as an adult, and how should there are going to be conflict. Earlier kids were in the school, or we were not spending so much time, so they did not knew that dad and mom were having so much arguments. But now things have changed, everyone is there 24/7.
Yes. Yes. So, Darshini, that you asked that question so beautifully, because I think what happens is that as adults, whether you've been married a year ago, 2 years ago, or whether you've been married 20 plus years, it's no different. when the whole family is under one roof, like everybody together at the same time, 24 hours a day. Okay, that is a huge deviation from what is normal. Prior to this pandemic, that is not how we lived. And I think the families that are doing better, that are dealing with it in a more functional, healthy way, are actually having open, honest conversations between themselves. So when you look at a family with parents and kids, and maybe, the next generation, the parents, grandparents, or cousins or uncles, whatever the family circumstances are, or even single families, where it's the mother and a few kids, a father and a few kids, all these different combinations. What is needed is communication and planning, like Desiree talked about planning. So when you communicate, I don't mean about just communication in general. What I mean is how are we going to structure our days? What is a weekday going to look like? What do we want to do if there is something called a special weekend when neither one of us is working? Or if we have mixed schedules, if we are staggering it, because a lot of parents with little kids are staggering it, because both parents cannot be working at the same time. So if you have the option, people are doing that. But a lot of parents don't even have that option. So the conversations and the communication between the adults in the family is very critical, and detailed conversation. Like, for example, what are we going to do for breakfast? Because the more structure you have, the more you can plan, and the more you can be prepared, and the more you feel more grounded and stable. When okay, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, this is what I'm doing. I have meetings from 10 to 12 that I cannot be disturbed. So one parent is having that and the other parent knows about it. You're going to take extra care to make sure that you're not disturbing the person having the meeting between 10 and 12, which is important, right? So that's an example of specific planning. And sometimes you can't plan. You absolutely cannot plan. Then you're left to your wits of, okay, what am I going to do to deal with this in such a way that I put minimum damage on myself and others? I think that's the way parents need to look at it, because you cannot put so much pressure on yourself that you cannot make a mistake, because we will make mistakes, guys. We will make mistakes. We will yell inappropriately sometimes. We will feel miserable. We will want to leave it all and go. So having those feelings is not unusual. What we do with them is very critical. So I would say structured meal times if possible, not for everybody together sometimes. So it's like, sometimes like if I say, I tell my husband, why don't you deal with this? We have a worker coming in at this point for something that's gone wrong in the house. Can you attend to that? While I do something else. So the more you plan, the more you communicate, I think the smoother your day-to-day becomes. And this expectation of support, right, that we have from our family members, friends, um, that's a very important aspect of healthy relationships in general, with or without the pandemic, right? That you know exactly what to look at your husband or your wife for support. You know that because there's a pattern there. And sometimes you need to revisit those patterns and say, I need a little help with this. Or I don't need help with this because, this is not helping me. You're interfering here. It doesn't seem like help. Or this is where you're completely oblivious to what I'm going through. This is where I need help. So having those uncomfortable conversations with our loved ones is very critical. So, somebody that I was once in a parenting class, and this person who was doing the in-service, he said, the best advice of parenting that I can give you is you have to lean into the feeling of discomfort in parenting. You have to give yourself permission to be uncomfortable and to make mistakes. And you have to lean into that feeling because that is predominantly what you feel. People talk about the joys of parenting. Yes, it's fabulous to be a parent. There's nothing more rewarding than being a parent, but it is also the most difficult job we do and the most consequential. And it's a test of who we are as well, because parenting reveals aspects of ourselves that we don't even know we had. So, again, to go back to the specifics, communication between the adults, between the parents, and if you have adult kids, I'm in a situation where I have adult kids in the family. And that makes it a different kind. It's like four adults. It's like living in a house with four roommates, with a common kitchen, right? Common hallways, common general areas. There's no, we in the US, we don't have people coming in to clean every day. Desiree, that's a pre-pandemic issue for us, right? We don't even have that. So who's going to clean the bathrooms? Who's going to clean the kitchen? Who's cooking? Who's going to order the groceries if you don't have to go, if you cannot go? If you can go, who's going? So there are lots of decisions that people make, adults make, and having honest, open conversations and doing it with love, I think, is the hardest part. Because when you're having that important day, 3 meetings, 3 deadlines, you don't know what something's got to give. And what happens is your disposition and your mood is that's hardest to manage, right? Does that address what you were asking,
Yeah, it's
Darshini?
perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Rashmi, you had the end of your question was parents arguing. Did I catch that right?
Yeah.
Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Um, this as I do these live sessions with kids at my school, kids have been talking about it, how parents arguments have started to bother them. Parents now have nowhere to go. Okay, everyone is confined to these four walls, and kids are watching real meltdowns taking place, marriages starting to unravel. So it's taking a toll on them. And I think therapy is available online to address that aspect of your question. And I think parents, couples need need to have a space to talk about that, because if it's getting that loud that kids are watching it and they're getting affected by it, then something's not right there. Lakshmi, what
Yeah,
do you have to
correct.
say about that?
Yeah. So what we're finding is that the request for counseling, therapy, mental health issues are just rising
Right.
beyond belief. I mean, it's worse than war experiences. In the US right now, in 9/11, 3,000 people died for the entire event. Now in the US, about 3,000 people are dying every day, right? So the mental health issues that people are facing is beyond understanding at this point. So when you talk, Desiree, about people seeking out supports, or most people are actually looking at therapy as an option. More people are now requesting counseling and therapy than ever before. And I think this is true for all cultures, Europe included. I get a lot of requests from India, and I get a lot of requests, of course, from the US. And now I've started to get requests from Australia, New Zealand, because everything, we're all in this, the pandemic world is one global world, with some differences in the day to day, but it's pretty much, there's a whole context we're operating under. So for folks who already are dealing with mental health issues, for kids who are struggling, for adults who are struggling with depression, with anxiety, whatever it is, um, I would say that every family has to look within and see, do we need professional help? Are things getting so bad that we need to reach out to a professional? Or do we need to seek other supports? Do I need to talk to a bunch of other parents so I can validate and, figure out what everybody is going through. Is what I'm going through separate and different from what others are going through? So making conscious decisions about seeking support online, because none of this, we're not doing any of the face-to-face stuff anymore. Or if we're doing it so much less than what we need, or how the regular world we were operating in. So am I feeling isolated? Do I feel like I need to structure a time to reach out to my friends? Do I need to have a laugh session with my childhood friends? I do this often. I'm connected to my school buddies, and we all just, that's a place where we can be ourselves, joke about our kids, our spouses, all the other things we do, chat, figure out what everybody is doing. So find ways to practice self-care for yourself. Each parent needs to do that, by the way. It's not enough, because I just have a case right now where the woman is so angry with her husband. This is a couple that didn't have that many issues before this. And now she is angry. She is so angry that she is not even able to tell him how angry she is. And as we were unpacking this story, one of the things I said to her, is, I wonder what he thinks about this. And she said, I don't even think he knows how angry I am. And that's when we began to have a conversation about that you can control, right? If somebody who loves you, who's in the same house with you, doesn't even know or has no clue as to how angry you are, you then can empower yourself. You have choices. You have tools in your toolbox. You can decide, do I want to communicate this? How much do I want to communicate? When do I want to communicate? What do I say? How do I say it? I need to say it when the kids are not around. I need to create a time where it's just the two of us, which is a challenge in itself. Rashmi, I'm sure you can relate to that with a 5 and 7-year-old.
Yeah.
There is no alone time,
No.
right? So, but we need to start thinking about, what is it that I need? What is within my control? Circles of control, which I love to talk about. What can we do to change? How can we do out of the box thinking about what we need, what we feel, what we need, and what we can do, and what we can ask? Because it's amazing. Sometimes if you ask, people actually do it, and it's a tremendous help. Yeah, I just mentioned my kids the other day, I hate going grocery shopping. I want fresh things. And he's like, Mom, let's just sign up for this Misfit service. They deliver at the door. You can do that. I'm like, really? And I said, well, why don't you just do it then? Instead of me having to research, investigate, just do it. And the next thing I know, that next Tuesday, I got a delivery. And I was thrilled beyond belief, because and I just mentioned it just offhand. So I think sometimes parents sometimes feel, mothers especially, who are frustrated and feel isolated and alone. I think we tend to feel like we need to solve every problem without asking for help. Because sometimes I say something and my husband will say, oh, I didn't realize that. And I said something sassy like, it's about time you realized that. And I said, well, that wasn't very helpful, right? That creates a conversation which is not needed. Instead of saying, oh, really, you didn't know that, I guess I should tell you how I feel. That would have been a more appropriate response, even though I was sassy at the time. So I think the point is, we need to communicate about what we're feeling and need to ask for help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? What else? What are the other questions, Rashmi? Talk to us about what other issues are coming up.
I was wondering if we could talk about the very young children.
Okay.
There are some parents who have just had babies during the pandemic, and there are some parents who have toddlers, and they're very concerned about social interaction, the lack of social interaction, and how this is affecting their kids. Some of them have noticed stranger anxiety developing, maybe to a greater extent than it normally would, because they're seeing everyone wearing masks, everyone staying very far apart. So there's not a sense of connection And you're not able to like foster your kids' curiosity either, because at that age, they're
Right.
very curious. They want to, go up to things and people and explore, and you have to say no a lot. And that was another issue that came up. A lot of parents are having to say no, and they're uncomfortable with that.
And they hear it back. The kids are
Yeah.
saying a lot of
Kids are
no's.
saying it back too. Yeah.
Yeah, because if that's what kids hear, if the mother is always saying, no, you can't do this, you can't go to the park, no, we cannot go to the store to get a toy, no, we cannot. If that's all they're hearing, they're coming back with, no, I'm
Yeah.
not doing this either. I'm not having my vegetable.
Yeah, so I have a 21-month-old daughter, and it was so normal. She was like her after her main development years were in pandemic, where she'll pick up everything, every damn thing. And it's earlier I used to feel it's so natural, but because we are in pandemic and there is the fear of getting COVID, I'm like, don't touch anything, don't touch. And it's so hard to tell the kid not to climb a bench or not to climb a
Yeah.
or not to touch a pole.
Yeah, so Darshini, is this something that happens when you're outside with her, or is it in the house?
Outside.
Outside, right? So, well, first, I want to say great that you're taking her outside. Okay, so one of the important things at that age, the really young kids and the kids that you are that only know the pandemic and nothing else, right? Rashmi, that was your question, right? Only about the pandemic and nothing else. Um, it's important to see what they're spending time with throughout the day. So they need to be outside for a little bit, even if it is, if you're in India, even if you go down to the building for a minute, just get some fresh air, to go for a little walk, because there is no substitute for physical outdoor time. Here in the US, even when it is minus 10 degrees, most of the daycare centers will bundle the kids up and go out at least for 10 minutes. That's mandated. All of the accreditation programs, childhood accreditation programs, ask that you do that. Why is that? You need to be exposed to fresh air. So now during the pandemic, the fact that you're taking her out is a good thing. Now, when you go out, you can always make rules as to what happens when we go out. So there can be inside rules and outside rules. Just like we tell toddlers when they're talking, use the inside voice, right? Versus yelling at the outside voice, right? So you can, when you're teaching about habits related to the pandemic, like for example, mask wearing, right? You need to wear a mask when you go out, but you don't need to wear a mask when it's just us at home. There's a distinction there. So as long as you're teaching them the different rules in different places. So now this thing about touching everything. So now I was just listening to one of the COVID-19 updates. And what they're saying is that now they're less concerned about things like surfaces, like touching surfaces. The main thing is through breathing. That's why masks are so important, because it's actually more concerned about it being airborne rather than touching surfaces. But regardless, you can't just randomly touch everything. So I understand what you're saying. So is it possible then to carry a hand sanitizer, something little that you can take, and you can say, you know what, okay, you touch that, then we need to do this. After a while, they're going to be sick of using that, and she'll stop touching it. I mean, that's just a suggestion. Give it a shot. My point being that if there are alternative responses to no, then as parents, we need to figure those out.
I
Because if she
think that
listens to no, yeah,
I think I've dealt with that with my kids pre-pandemic, like
right,
noticing that they were saying no because I was saying no a lot. So then
right,
I had to start saying, you can't do this, but you can do this other thing.
yes,
And
exactly,
so kind of give them a choice of what they can do. So
yes,
they're not focused on the no as much.
right.
But
It's
that
like
was,
having kids, trying vegetables, right?
yes.
I used to always tell the kids this. Okay, you have a choice. There's carrots, there's broccoli, and there's beetroots. Which one would you like? Well, they hated all three, but the point is they had to pick one.
Yeah.
right? So that's why I think the way we phrase it, the language that we use, the way we inculcate choices matter. So I totally agree with you that pre-pandemic, these were some of the parenting things that were helpful and healthy. We can do that, except we have to be a little bit more creative, given that we're so restricted, right? And you can do good parenting when things are normal because you feel normal. Right now, you're not feeling normal. We're all struggling. So I think this all or none problem we need to get rid of. That we have to be perfect all the time. Throw that out. That's just not happening. Okay. If anything, this pandemic has taught us how imperfect we are, how unready we are, how fragile relationships are, whether it's your husband, whether it's your child, whether it's your parent, whether it's somebody, a friend. They're fragile unless we can tend to it, unless we can, and it's never the same, right? You're going through times when you just hate some people. I belong to a group, and there's a colleague of mine. She and I have always had disagreements. And now during this pandemic, when we're in these groups, we're still having those disagreements. Till finally, one day I gave her a call outside the group just to chat. And I realized she's a really nice person. It's just that, sometimes we don't see eye to eye. And once I had that call, my attitude towards her during the group was far better. So the point is, we have to tweak and adjust and regulate and moderate those switches, our own switches, and it takes time and it's laborious, but sometimes it's worth it.
So, going along those lines, I'm wondering, I think a lot of parents have expectations, which is natural. Like when their kids are born and when their kids are toddlers and when their kids start school, like what that's going to look like for them. And basically nothing has happened this year the way we've expected.
Yeah.
And I think there's a loss there in some ways. Like we're grieving the loss of our expectations. How do you think parents should adjust their expectations and kind of deal with this sense of loss?
Right. So, I think what makes parenting so hard are those expectations. Because if we didn't have to worry about those expectations, if we were just organically, if we let them grow organically, and if we paid attention to our role as parents in a more organic way, we'd put less pressure and we'd feel less pressure. The problem comes in when you have to be learning, your gross motor skills have to be developed by X amount of years, or you have to be school ready, or you have to be able to do this assignment in school perfectly, and that you have to do well. Once you have those expectations is when you start to get pressured. Your brain goes into a different modality altogether. So what I would say, Rashmi, for the younger kids, the the quality of how you talk to them is more important than what you say. You don't need to talk to them about something serious all the time. If it is just doing a puzzle together, or it's reading a book or something, it doesn't even matter. It's not like the puzzle is better than the book or something else is not as good. It's how you do that. Where you're present with them, where they feel, where it's not a lot of instruction all the time. Do this, do that. Kids tell you this all the time. The only time my mother talks to me is when she's telling me what I should do or what I did wrong. I had a 9-year-old kid say this to me with the mother sitting in my office. And the mother looked and she just shrugged her shoulders and she said, yeah, you may be right, but I have so much going on. Because I think what happens is, if you look at the world through kids' eyes, it's a very awful world. The adults are always telling them what to do. They can't even walk, talk, dress, eat what they want. Right? Can you imagine living like that? Right now, we are living like that to some extent. We can't go out. We don't get everything we need. And I don't know if I still have a job, right? So the fact is that how we do things are more important rather than, the specifics of meeting this expectation, doing this right, and sleeping right all the time, and eating right, and your kids listening to you. Kids don't listen. That's how we grow. We evolve as human beings by exploring the environment. And let's not take away that from the kids. When kids say, my parents are fighting a lot, right? Desiree, you mentioned that. Um, I wonder how many of those parents actually even know that, or even know that the kids are saying that in the session, in the group session. So when you do one-on-one family therapy work, that's easy to do, right? What is everybody saying? What is not? But as you're doing sessions with kids, I wonder whether we should start considering doing sessions for parents, because parenting is about the parents and not about the kids. Are we supporting the parents? Are we asking them, what are your concerns? It's okay if some assignment, gets done a little late, especially for preschool. Those things are just to keep them occupied. You're not going to go to Harvard from those assignments. Do you know what I mean? But we pretend like as though you have to, he does well when he's 3, 4, and 5. And then he does well when he goes to elementary. And then he goes to the best middle school. Then he goes to a high school. That's a magnet school, maybe, or, school for the gifted. Then what? Why even worry about that? So this idea of parenting by being in the moment, I think is very, very, very critical, regardless of the age of the child.
I wanted to share something that for me
Yeah.
personally in this pandemic, parenting has been, it has had its ups and its downs. So in my many conversations with Lakshmi, I've told her, like, um, this year I'm just not gonna be bothered, so worried about academics and
Mm.
things like that. And then there are moments where the demon rears its ugly head, when it's, something comes up. And I think those are moments where I myself feel like, maybe I'm being too hard on my kid, and I probably am. But
Mm.
at the end of the day, it's what you tell yourself, that ultimately, even as a parent, we are all in this together. We are in this trauma together. And being a therapist doesn't protect me any more than it than any regular folk out there.
Right.
I am equally impacted. I am gonna have altercations with my spouse or with my whoever. It's tough on all of us. And I think it's so important, when we talk about being kind to others, I think we have to first be kind to ourselves and realize that it's tough. And my motto has always been one day at a time. And
Mhm.
when those days are going to be, when it's going to be the last day, we don't know. But for now, I think each moment right now. So, I didn't have a great moment today as a parent with my kid. But now, as I hear all of us talk and we're here in this space, I find myself saying, what, that was that moment. And I can't be defined by that single
Mhm.
moment. And I have to learn to self-soothe as well as a parent. Otherwise,
Yes.
that can take over my headspace, and it can creep into so many other areas of my life,
Right.
professionally, as interacting with others, interacting with my child,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think in that moment, what you tell yourself is so important. So am I a bad parent because of what I did then with
Mm.
him? Or it was that moment, it was just that moment, and I am human and haven't gone out in months. I'm
Right.
working from home. It's stressful, right? So that was that moment. and
Mm.
and we are okay. Mom and baby are okay. We're okay. We figured it out, right? We
Right.
spoke about it, we talked about it, Were we uncomfortable in the moment? Yes, we were. But now, as I'm thinking about it, it's what I say to myself. And I think that goes for all relationships, isn't it? Whether it's
Mhm.
as a daughter or a wife, or in even as an employee. I think we've just got to practice kindness from here, our family, and let it radiate outwards, I think.
Mm, mm. One of you mentioned, right, the struggle with time, or maybe we talked about it prior to the thing. I want to say a couple things about the time thing, because that's real. There are only 24 hours in a day, and we're talking about having a structure and you having two kids and both of you working, and there's only so much time. And Desiree, you have a grandmother to take care of, you have dishes to wash, you have the house has to be reasonably clean. The demands are real. These are not imagined issues. And time is an interesting commodity, right? There are times when you feel like, oh my God, I can't wait for this to get done. There are other times when before you know it, the day is done. um, I just want to talk about a couple of things, that couple parenting tips that I just kind of want us to think about. One thing is, I was reading an article that said that people who actually physically say thank you, or do something related to gratitude every day, okay, research has shown that it actually affects their disposition, it actually affects their sense of optimism, it actually makes them more productive. So, for example, so when with young kids, especially Rashmi with 5 and 7 year olds, and Darshini for you a little later, and for Aaron too, he's 8, right? Um, Actually, to go through a motion of saying every day, or at least once a week or twice a week, to say, you know, these are the things that I'm grateful for. I'm grateful that, we're all together. I'm grateful that at this point, nobody amongst the four of us have COVID yet, because there's so many people dying from COVID. I'm happy that we are remembering to wear our masks. So the gratitude being almost behavioral in some ways, because that reinforces the rules of the pandemic. And it legitimizes it, it validates that this is going on in our lives now. So, like either a gratitude journal for older folks, with the younger folks, to actually have a session with them. Let's all go around and just say, what are we grateful for? Little things. And if you can model that, I'm grateful that, my meeting today went well, because yesterday didn't go that well. So to recognize that things cannot be so good, but then they get better. That this too shall pass, that concept of nothing is permanent, or that, um, you know, today I finished my vegetables, even though yesterday I didn't. Things like that, actually specific behavioral thankful statements or recognition statements, labeling, just labeling feelings, labeling behaviors without judging, makes a difference. You feel like these things are within my control. you know like for some of the kids, you can give them different colored masks and they get to pick, just as they can choose what they want to wear as long as it's weather appropriate. They can choose a mask. So some of the rules, some of the prescriptions that we are dealing with now, where we have to wear a mask, we have to wash, we have to do this, that, and the other, if you can give the semblance of choices and make it a little bit more fun, it makes a difference in the long run.
I just wanted to notify that, we are just wrapping, the time is approaching. So,
Yes,
just being mindful of that. And
yes,
as you said, that I do practice gratefulness every night with my daughter. So we say,
yes,
I don't know she gets it or not, but yeah,
yes.
we are so thankful in pandemic that we all are healthy. That's the main thing. I am always thankful.
Yeah. And Darshini, I know that about you. You are she's one of the most optimistic, grateful therapists I have ever met. So I mean, kudos to you for doing that. And for all of us, right? For all of us, if we can practice some of these things, sometimes we do it more diligently than others, and that's okay. That's totally okay. You know, I think if your intent is there to do the right thing and you do it and you allow yourself to make mistakes, and like Desiree said, if you can practice self-compassion and if we can support each other in our roles as parents, that's half the battle. And at the end of it, it will be okay. I truly believe that. You know, no matter how long this takes, at the end of it, we will be okay and we will have learned something from it. So I think to feel intrinsically motivated and positive is something we need to work on as parents, and that automatically transmits to our children, I think. Okay, resilience, gratitude, all of that. Anyway, it's such a joy, guys. Thank you so much. Let's wrap up. It's long. Thank you so much to each one of you for participating in this conversation through positive outcomes. We will post it in some platforms and figure out a way on how we can spread the word around. And if either one of the three of you need anything from me, please reach out, whether it's parenting or whether it's anything else. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.